from the Kentucky Derby.
You're watching Past the Wire TV, the biggest races at the best tracks. From the Kentucky Derby to the Breeders' Cup. The best horse racing coverage is right here on Past the Wire TV.
A very good Sunday morning to each of you. Sunday morning coffee on Past the Wire TV. I am Big Race Jim. Shout out Shore Bet Coffee, AmWager, Pleasant Acres for helping me and Past the Wire bring this exciting show to you every single week. A lot to talk about, maybe some stuff we've talked about before that hasn't changed. But let's start with some racing. The Sword Dancer was fun. I thought there was a lot going on in that race, and it was a turf stake in New York that was actually run like a turf stake should. A lot of moving parts, decent fractions, some big moves, some strange moves. We'll get into it all. So it was kind of out of the ordinary for New York turf racing, but it was a fun race to watch. And they announced just before the race that moving forward, this race will now be named the Christophe Clement Turf, which I think is very cool. I think Christophe, I read, won 5 Sword Dancers. So that's an awesome honor for him since his passing. And his son, Miguel, has been absolutely red hot all summer at Saratoga. So very nice for them. Let's check out the replay of the Sword Dancer as they break from the gate. Oh, and I recorded this with my headphones on, so you won't hear the audio. Oh, good to know. Anyway, I thought Farbridge, you figured Farbridge would be on the lead. That's where he does his best running, but he's 5th here. And what Joel does coming around this turn, I thought was a little perplexing to me. Like you'll see, a little wide, but then he lets him out a notch and he rushes up here. And then he gets on even terms with this vote no, and now he's pulling at him. And I didn't understand that. He's pulling at him hard, like twice there for a good 1/8 of a mile, 1/16 of a mile at least. And I'm wondering why that is. I mean, maybe he understood and recognized that the pace was a little bit swifter, but sometimes I think that horse needs to be out in the clear with nobody around him. And I just thought at this point you knew that it wasn't his race, even as Joel is grabbing the reins at him coming into that clubhouse turn. You probably had a sneaking suspicion that it wasn't going to be his day. And this is another opportunity where you can kind of play against the CAWs. And I just want to make pause this. I'm gonna take it down just so I can make just so I can make that point with Farbridge. Last year, he had some really good races back to back to back. I'm pulling up his stuff here. So last year, when he won the Sword Dancer, that kind of springboarded him forward, right? He won that. He won the Joe Hirsch. He didn't run all that well in the Breeders' Cup Turf, but then he came back to start 2025, and he won the Pan American at Gulfstream. Followed that up with the Man of War at the Big A, and then he came to Saratoga for the Belmont Stakes racing weekend, and he finished third in the Manhattan. He won the Bowling Green. I don't know. I mean, I guess that's that kind of goes against the point I was trying to make, that maybe perhaps he wasn't as good. Uh, he hasn't been as good this year as he had been in the past. And if you look at his Equibase speed figures, I don't have his other speed figures in front of me, but if you look at his Equibase speed figures in the meet of last year, 113, 116, 118. And then this year, 111. Yesterday was a 110. He did get a 119 in the Manhattan. So I don't know. Maybe he's fine, and the other horses are just getting a little bit better around him. But I thought not being on the lead was certainly compromising for Farbridge, and you saw that going into coming through the stretch for the first time. He wasn't able to control the pace. It was a little bit faster than he probably would have liked, and that was compromising for him. The next thing I wanted to point out was Nation's Pride here. And this horse too, continues to be bet and relatively disappointing, but what a move. Usually the horses in turf races in New York really start running around the far turn, at the top of the turn, or at the top of the stretch, I should say. And he blasted, well before that, and then kind of leveled off. I want to rewind this here just a bit, because I thought Rebel Red was interesting here as well too. Like, look at Prat on the one, right? He's still sitting there along the rail as Nation's Pride fires out of there and gets going. And Prat is still in behind horses, patient. And then you see the two in the maroon, Rebel Red. He starts coming up, and it looks like he got a little space here. And then he just kind of stopped and was like looking around, waiting for somebody. Because then once El Cordobez passed him, he kind of re-engaged. And I thought that this whole part of the race here was super interesting to me, because you had Nation's Pride saying, all right, I'm going to go. Everybody try and catch me. You have Prat on the winner, whose name I can't pronounce. It's really starting to get into him here. Rebel Red had a couple of good strides and then just kind of stopped and waited. And by the time he re-engaged, it was too late. And the winner, was able to run off and win. This is what turf racing in New York should be. I thought that was a really fun race that had a lot of interesting things going on throughout the race, and just another unbelievable ride by Flavien Prat to get the victory. When I thought, a lot of horses in there had a shot, and a lot of horses gave a decent effort. Right, Rebel Red, I thought ran very solid for second. You just wish he would have kept moving forward and didn't kind of lose attention. I don't know if that's the right word, but he kind of had a couple of powerful strides and then gave up his momentum. And by the time he tried to re-engage, it was a little bit too late. Anyway, fun race. Congrats to the winning connections. Well, we got some other stuff we got to talk about races not being run at the proper distance, and we'll do that when we come back. Go. Everything is funny, but we're tired of laughing at the same jokes. What what is happening at Saratoga, Naira in general, and you know, they ran the finale yesterday at a mile and a 16th, and it should have been a mile and an eighth. And they had made the race official before anybody recognized it. So there's nothing they can do in terms of like refunds or paying out bets or whatever. Everything just rubber stamped and moved on. And there's a couple of issues. One, the race was run at the wrong distance. And how this happens, I think Dave Grenning in DRF, I think is where I read it this morning. This has happened 3 times in the last 7 years. And you can say like, yeah, that's not that bad, for the number of races that they've run in the last 7 years. But this should never happen. This should never, ever, ever happen. They have the program with an icon of where the race should be set up. The head starter knows where the race should be set up. The 3 stewards know where the race should be set up. Like, how are we missing this? So that's obviously the main issue. The second issue is I'm not so sure this is much of a NYRA. Like, 2 of the 3 stewards aren't employed by NYRA, which I think is a really important point to mention. One's with the Gaming Commission. I don't know where the other one's from. Maybe 2 of them are from the Gaming Commission. I'm not sure, but I know at least one is. One's with NYRA, and there's a third that is somewhere from some other entity, perhaps. Like, this is their this is their job, and it should be very easy to make sure that the starting gate is in the right spot for every single race. we all complain about it. You have 35 minutes between every race to make sure that it's correct. So unacceptable. Should somebody be fired? No, I hate that stuff. Um, I think that it's such a it's such a childish thing. Fire him. Okay. Okay. Yes. Sure. I've never thought that that was the right tact to take with anything really. Should there be consequences? Absolutely. Because what I think where horse racing kind of drops the ball is they don't realize that they're in the customer service and hospitality business, despite all of their marketing suggesting that they know that they're in the hospitality and customer service business. They're just customer servicing the wrong customer. And that's a problem when you're not servicing your main most dedicated customer. So the fact that the stewards made the race official and that neither one of those three or the New York Racing Association or anybody at whoever it would be, the Jockey Club, Commissioner Rapoli, I don't know, maybe he tweeted something, I didn't see it. The fact that this happened and nobody has put out a statement of at least acknowledging it is bad. Bad, bad, bad. That statement should have been out 10 minutes, 15 minutes after the race saying, we know this happened. We signed off on the race. It's official. We can't go back, but here's how we're going to go forward. And they haven't done that yet, at least to my knowledge. And it's 8:30 Central Time on Sunday morning. They haven't done that yet, and that's a problem. And just kind of like, actually, I did think they put out a statement that acknowledged it, but that's all it said, right? Like we need something more than that. We need something a little bit more than that. Like what's happening to make sure that this doesn't happen again? What's happening to make things right with the bettors? Um, like what is we don't know. We don't know what's happening, and that's a problem. And to Naira's credit, was it last year? I think it was last summer when there was all that rain and they kept pulling pick fives off the turf in the middle of the sequence, and everybody's getting ticked because they did it, seemingly like 3 weekends in a row. And then they seeded, like, I think it was the pick five pool with like $100,000. Okay, step in the right direction. You could argue that it wasn't enough, wasn't significant enough of a give back to the players, but it was something. It was something. And a lot of tracks are moving to more transparency, I think, which is good. You have some tracks that are telling you, stewards are getting on there and explaining their decisions or non-decisions. You've got a lot of tracks trying to make things right with the bettors, and I applaud that. But there's still a long way to go, and I think this is a perfect example of something where we're just like, oh, it happened. And then we just move on. And everybody that played yesterday is probably going to play today. And everything's just going to keep moving on as normal. There's no accountability, there's no innovation, there's no forward thinking. And I think the fact that they made the race official just speaks to how outdated the tote system is, and that there's no way to go back and correct it. And I get that, perhaps that opens up a massive can of worms, right? Where, you've got you get into the issue that sports betting has right now, where wide receiver stubs their toe and goes out of the game, and everybody wants a refund on their player props or whatever. Now, of course, the betting pools are different, but I'm just trying to use that as an analogy of kind of opening up a can of worms, where you do it once and then everybody expects you to continue to do it every time that there's a minor inconvenience. But like we've seen, horses' heads still being turned at the gate, and they make the race official because they didn't see it for some reason, and there's nothing you can do. Scratching a horse accidentally in the Breeders' Cup, and there's no way to put that horse back into the starting gate for betting purposes. So all of these other issues get highlighted by running the race at the wrong distance. So while we're hung up on the incompetency that allowed that to happen in the first place, it also raises concerns about the tote system, customer service, the legitimacy of horse racing as a whole. And who's left holding the bag? As always, the people playing the game, which are getting fewer and fewer and fewer and fewer. So, do these people need to be fired? No. But there needs to be something. There needs to be something done to make sure that this doesn't happen again, ever. Because it's a bad look for the sport to outsiders. It's a bad look to the sport to insiders, and just speaks to a lack of accountability from racing's leadership, a lack of transparency, a lack of technological innovation to allow there to be some sort of customer service end to make this right. And it's unfortunate. It's unfortunate that all of these things keep happening, and the bettors are the ones left getting screwed. I'm going to leave it there. Sunday morning coffee on Past the Wire TV on Big Race Jim. Shout out to Shore Bet Coffee, AmWager, and Pleasant Acres. Every week, their support allows us to put on what I think is a great show, and hopefully you think it's great and entertaining as well. Travers coming up. I was thinking about that yesterday. Maybe next week we'll do a little bit of a Travers preview once we see who was nominated for the race. All right, everybody, have a great rest of your weekend.
comes journalism, here comes sovereignty, and they square off, heading to the final furlong. Sovereignty wins the Derby!
You're watching Past the Wire TV. Hit that like button and subscribe to Past the Wire TV. Nobody does it better.